In this next video, we're going to cover bullet seating. That entails several things that you need to either learn or understand. First is obviously adjusting the bullet seating die. That's the third in this pistol series that I have here. The way that's adjusted is you raise the ram, lower the die until it contacts the shell holder, and for the Lee dies, and I can't speak for all brands, but for the Lee dies, you then back this out 3 full turns and snug it up. And the reason for that is you don't want at this point the die body interacting with the case at all. All you want is this stem here that contacts the top of the bullet and starts it into the case, and we're going to adjust this down until we get the correct amount of bullet seating. If you recall from our load data, the full final overall length of our finished cartridge with this exact bullet is supposed to be 1.060 inches. The other thing that's involved here is the amount of expansion you did to the case mouth with this previous die. This is relevant only for handgun ammunition. With rifle ammunition, especially bottlenecked ammunition, there's a different treatment to the mouth of the case to facilitate the beginning of the insertion of the bullets, but with handgun ammo, it's with this expansion die as we covered in an earlier video. And your success here is going to depend on how much or how little you expanded it. You can expand it too little and the bullet won't start properly, and you can expand it too much. Too much is not as great a hazard simply because all you're doing is extra work hardening to the mouth of the case, which will then be returned back to normal in a subsequent stage, which we'll cover. But the reality is you're simply going to shorten the life of the cases if you expand them more than is necessary. So there's some simple things you can do to see if you've expanded it correctly. This is one of the cases that we have charged and ready to go. Let's zoom in a little bit so you can see what's going on here. This is the expansion that we've done previously on this case, and if you'll notice, if we put the bullet on top of it, it's not falling in. It's certainly not going in very far, but it's going in enough that it's actually snug. You can actually feel that the base of the bullet has started into the case. And by comparison, I'm going to take a case here. This is an empty, unresized, undecapped case. It has not had the mouth expanded. And if we put the bullet on top of this case, it simply balances on there. As you can see, it won't actually start into the case at all. Now, you need a little bit more case expansion, mouth expansion for cast bullets generally than plated bullets, simply because the gilding is a little bit harder than most lead on lead bullets. And if you don't have it quite expanded enough, what you'll see is as you start to insert the bullet in the case, you'll see a little bit of the lead getting shaved off on the edges of it. Also, I have examples that I can show you. As a matter of fact, I might have one right here. Let's see. I save my mistakes so that I can use as examples. Yes, here's a case where a 38 Special plated bullet was put in a case that was not expanded enough, and it actually caught the edge of the brass and ripped the edge of the brass down. Now, this is a fully assembled cartridge, so it has to be handled carefully, but this is an example of what happens without enough mouth expansion. So what we're going to do now is we're going to test whether or not this is the correct amount of bullet expansion. We're going to move this to the bullet seating die. We're going to back this stem out. Let me back out a little so you can see what I'm doing. You can back this stem out at the top of the die considerably. You want little or no contact with the bullet when you first insert it in the case. Now, I can put this all the way up and I can feel that there's no contact at all. So I can lower this until I feel contact, lower the ram and advance it a little bit. And now I'll feel a slight amount of resistance as I begin the bullet in the case. Now, this is an extreme example because we've only just barely started it in the case, but it is going in straight. And what we're going to do is continue to advance this and continue to insert the bullet further. Now, I've got a good idea of about where this is supposed to wind up. If you're a true beginner with this, what you're going to do is before you go very far, you're going to measure the overall length with your calipers. Be sure you zero them out if they need to be zeroed. Measure the overall length. This is now 1.107. We're going to 1.060. So we're only 47 thousandths of an inch away from being properly seated. And if you'll notice, the flat area of the bullet is still exposed. It's going to be slightly exposed even when we're at the proper depth. You don't ever want to get it to where the case mouth is actually going over the curved portion of the bullet. So let's advance this a tiny bit more and try it. And I can tell from looking at it that we're getting very close. So what we're going to do is measure the overall length. And we are now at 1.078. So we're only a few thousandths away. So we're going to be doing this in very small increments and checking until we have the seating 7.07 or 1.071. We're going to 060, so it's just the very tiniest little extra amount. Now we're at 064, so we're at a distance now where practically breathing on that knob is going to change it enough to get where we want to go. Okay, that is 060 and a half. That's 5/10,000ths of an inch. That's about as close as we're going to get. Now, you can see visually about how much of the case is available, and then you're going to do your next case, and it should be set up correctly. Put the bullet on top of the case. You can feel that it's slightly started in. Push it down. Measure it. 1.060 exact. So we're exactly where we want to be. Now, understand one thing though, that unless you're dealing with highly controlled tolerances on your bullets, there's going to be some slight variations in the surface of the tip of the bullet, especially when you have bullets like this where you've got the grooves in it. You're going to get a few 10,000ths, if not 1,000th of a more difference from bullet to bullet. So one thing you should not do at this point is get absolutely crazy over whether or not you have the exact length of each finished bullet to the 10,000th of an inch. It's just not going to happen. And if you do try to do that, you're going to drive yourself crazy trying to get that level of precision. We are within a 1/2 of a thousandth of an inch here with what we want. And so what we're going to do is go ahead and continue seating the balance of these bullets, and then we're going to proceed to the next step, which will be the final step, crimping of the bullets before we take them to the range to test them.